last year and so busy last year doing the bare minimum thing, but I just.
Welcome back to Movie Flix. Today we are going to recap a 2011 comedy romance movie titled Bad Teacher. Elizabeth, an incompetent and lazy school teacher, is abandoned by her rich fiance. Later, she tries to woo a wealthy substitute, Scott, while competing with a colleague, Amy, for his affection. Story takes multiple thrilling turns, but at the end, she falls in love with a stranger. But before we begin, please consider subscribing to our channel. Now, without wasting any further time, let's begin, shall we? We see a lady named Elizabeth at the opening of the movie. She is a huge gold digger and also works as a teacher, but she despises her job and wishes to marry a wealthy man and live rest of her life in luxury. Elizabeth seduced an extremely wealthy man. She was going to marry him, which is why she resigned her teaching position. She then proceeded to meet her spouse at his home. Her lover was in company of his mother. Her lover had already packed everything she owned. Actually, Elizabeth's boyfriend mother has already shown him that she does not love him and everything is done just for his money. Then he evicted her from his house. Her intention to marry a wealthy man had been shattered and she had also lost her job. That is why she had to return to the school as a teacher. She met another instructor named Amy. After arriving at school, Amy tried to talk to her, but Elizabeth was treating her quite harshly and with attitude. Amy didn't care for it at all. Elizabeth went to a pub that night in order to seduce a wealthy man. Then a man walked in. Elizabeth began flirting with him and attempting to seduce him, but when she discovered that he was not wealthy, she dumped him. When Elizabeth walked out of the canteen, she noticed an attractive teacher whose name was Scott. Scott was wearing a very expensive watch, and Elizabeth spotted it and assumed he was a wealthy man. That's why Elizabeth chose to have her breast implanted in order to impress Scott. She then went to the doctor to get her breast implanted, but the doctor told her that the surgery would cost her $9,000. Elizabeth was taken aback. Since she didn't have enough money, Elizabeth came to school in such short dress in the hopes that people would be drawn to her and come to wash their cars. Elizabeth made a lot of money from the car wash, so she stole some and kept it. Then things began to improve and Elizabeth's parents handed her money so she could take care of their children. Elizabeth's buddy informed her that there will be a test in school and the first student's teacher will be awarded. With that, Elizabeth discovered a new way to manage funds for her breast implants. The next day, she went to her class and began strictly educating her students in order for her class's students to be top of the list. She devised a strategy to ensure that her students scored highest on the exam. The test was administered. 1 month later, her kids performed admirably on the test. Then Elizabeth received $5,700. Elizabeth was overjoyed now that she is able to perform her best implants. After a few days, school scheduled a trip, but Elizabeth slipped something in Amy's apple, preventing her from accompanying Scott on the trip. Amy's face grew so awful with pimples after eating that apple that she didn't go on the vacation. And when she saw Scott going on a trip with Elizabeth, she felt very upset. Amy returned to school and took Elizabeth's text to her class and placed her desk in Elizabeth's class. She then called a worker and asked him to break the lock on Elizabeth's desk, claiming that it was hers. And when she examined the drawer, she discovered that there was a test answer sheet placed inside. Then she realized why Elizabeth's student came in the first place on the test. Amy took the answer sheet to the principal's office and told him everything. After hearing this, the principal became enraged and told Amy that we needed that professor's statement to penalize Elizabeth. So Amy went to that professor and prepared him to provide his statement. Elizabeth used naked images to blackmail the professor. Elizabeth actually snapped the images while the professor was unconscious. The professor then declined the offer, his testimony against Elizabeth. On the other hand, Elizabeth discovered that Amy had changed her workstation. Elizabeth was aware that she has always kept drugs in her desk, which is currently in Amy's class. Then Elizabeth went to the principal and complained about Amy doing drugs at school. And when they investigated Amy's desk, they discovered drugs that Elizabeth had placed there long time ago. The police then apprehended her. Amy tried to convince everyone that this was not her desk, but rather Elizabeth's. After everything, Elizabeth went to Russell and accepted his proposal, and they began dating. And this is where the movie comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, until next time.